find some stuff
I've
to
got
chat
some.
about.
I've got some
maybe.
good. I got some good news. There's some stuff to talk about. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the new media show. It's Saturday, January, June 21st.
Wrong half of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. And after a couple of weeks off, it's just Rob and I this morning. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Doing great, Todd. It's great to be here. Sunny Seattle.
Well,
So,
it's
yep,
absolute treasured weather here in Hawaii right now too. It's beautiful.
yeah. It's all it's all good. The old saying goes, you know, I I ordered something that I really want, and all I got was a T-shirt. Well, this is kind of similar. I ordered a Surface 3,
Uh huh.
and guess what I got in the mail yesterday? This is my old Surface keypad.
Right.
I got my new Surface keypad right here. That's all I got.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's bigger. So yeah, I don't know if you can see, but it's it's
Yeah.
slightly
So
bigger.
you only got the keyboard. I don't understand why.
It's because I ordered the Core i7
Uh huh.
version, which doesn't ship till the end of August.
Gotcha.
So, but they chose to send me the keyboard just in case I might need it.
I'm trying to figure out why I'm hearing. You don't hear it, but I think I know. I got somewhere. I have.
Oh, is there an echo or something
It's
going on?
it's me, but it's not making it to the recording. But oh, I know why. Right there, the YouTube embed went live, and it was coming through the speaker. I was like, I could hear it just lightly, delayed, but that's cool. So you got the keyboard, but no computer.
That's right. But I could actually use this much larger keyboard with my first gen Surface Pro.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's fully compatible. It just would look really weird if I attached it to it because it's bigger.
Right. Well,
So,
we're running solo today, and Chris, Rob, and we were out past couple of weeks here, and it's good to be back with everyone, and a lot of stuff happening in the space. And
oh yeah.
I saw something, and this is, I don't know, it's probably, well, people that haven't heard about it, the announcement by Apple in making the iOS 8,
Hmm.
the podcast app native. In other words, when you get your iPhone, the new iPhone, or when iOS 8 is installed,
It's
everyone,
pre-installed.
it's pre-installed.
Yep.
So that's going to help things a lot.
Well, it's the same thing that Windows Phone did with the podcast area on the up and coming. It hasn't been released yet. The Windows Phone 8.1,
Right.
which is coming out here over the next couple months, is has a pre-installed podcast app. So it's the same concept. I think these are core services. They're first-party services. So I think it makes sense to pre-install them. I think it was a mistake by Apple to make their first-party podcast service an optional app. I think it was a mistake, and they're correcting it. So that's good news.
It is, and what's interesting about the move is I've been talking a lot here with folks in the Android community, trying to get some movement there because, to be honest with you, if we could get as many people using listening to podcasts on the Android device as we do on Windows, things would we'd be making
Or
some
on
serious.
Apple, you mean?
All
Yeah.
right, yeah, Apple. Yeah, jeez.
Yeah.
Too early in the morning here. Yeah,
It's all right.
it would make it would be huge. It would, the audience numbers would explode. But and I don't know what it is. I'm just I scratch my head about it quite a bit, trying to figure out where the Android community is listening to podcasts.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting challenge and opportunity for the space, and I think that there's efforts being made. I know Stitcher is putting forth some pretty significant effort there. Swell is about to launch their Android app. I know I was working on here the new Podcast One app, and I just got a pre-build of our new app that's coming out just yesterday, actually. So. I think that there's huge audience growth opportunity on the Android side, and I think it's going to be driven by content.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's the key. and there's been rumors for a while that Apple was going to do something on the Android side. If you think about the analogy that got iTunes so successful, it was Apple putting their iTunes software on Windows. So I think that the analogy makes a lot of sense there. I don't know that they are going to do that. This is just speculation on my part, but there has been rumors and discussion that would be an interesting opportunity for Apple to kind of extend what they're doing. I mean, if you look at the bigger picture of what's happening in all these platforms are all focused on cloud services and trying to extend their services over to other platforms, and that's a huge trend that's going on right now. And I think, I mean, I guess in reality, it's really nothing new, but it just feels like there's a lot more emphasis in that right now, where the models that have driven success for Netflix and other big players of being ubiquitous across all devices and all platforms is a successful strategy, because not all of us basically align ourselves with one platform entirely. Some of us have Apple products, some of us have Windows products, and we want to have that ability to get a device that fulfills our needs, but still get to the platforms and services that we all use. So I wouldn't be surprised if it happens. It's just when, I have no idea.
The thing, if they actually do that, if they introduce a podcast or even an iTunes app into Android, and it makes sense because, well, some people say I'm crazy, but they have to maintain revenue, and if they don't keep the revenue up, and then we know that the iTunes revenue has been slipping from the music side.
Yep.
Their app stuff is obviously doing well, but if they start slipping more, they're going to get impacted stock-wise. So maybe they can release an Android iTunes /podcast series of apps that will, tide some of that earning loss. It's an interesting dilemma, or it's an interesting proposition, and I think some people would become a little bit nervous if they knew that all of a sudden Apple was going to be in the Android space. I don't think some people will like it, but at this point, the Android community is not helping in large part to, if there was a huge presence, or if Google would do something, there's not it would help things, but Google's largely ignored the podcasting space.
Well, I think where it makes sense, and I think that the big question is whether or not Apple would ever put like their full iTunes store on the Android platform versus just the podcast. And the podcast area might be an interesting play for them, only from the perspective of being a sampling platform to get people to move over to Apple. So it's like get involved in the podcast area, and then it's like it's an easier decision to go over and get a new iPhone at some point, just because more and more people are starting to be attracted to that free content, and it's so I don't know. I mean, I think it depends on the strategy. I know a lot of these big companies, Microsoft is one of them, thought for a long time that keeping Office off of the iPad was a smart choice, and
right,
just because it would drive people to buying more Windows devices. Well, at the end of the day, here over the last 6 months, I think that has changed dramatically at the company, as the realization is that they're a platform company, not primarily a hardware company or an operating system company. And that could be part of the shift that we're seeing with Apple right now is they're thinking about, they are a second tier player in the market. Android is way far far ahead of them, not necessarily in the US, but on a global basis.
Yeah, it'll be curious to see what happens. But if you're an Android developer out there, there's a prime opportunity, to really shake things up. And we've been doing a major rework of we're adding Apple Fire TV and some Chromecast features and some other stuff. And this stuff is not cheap and takes time to do. I understand completely, but And maybe I don't know. I just maybe the Android audience, maybe folks that are podcasters on Android, can tell us, how you guys are consuming. What are you using right now? I know which apps are trending and which are doing well, but if you look at them, apples to apples and compare, where they're at and compared to where the iTunes, I don't even want to use that kind of a delineation because it should be, more like to the
Yeah.
ceiling and then down here somewhere in the single percentile range. So it's hard to say. I do think that too, some of the YouTube announcements, YouTube looking to definitely go more music. It's interesting to watch what they're doing here with, the live streaming. Of course, we're live streaming this morning on YouTube. They're definitely YouTube wants more of the content game. I don't know if that's a response to Amazon or what, but Google continues to definitely invest in changing up the game with YouTube as well. But I don't think people go to YouTube to they may go to consume music videos, but they don't go to consume just music.
Well, based on the things that I've heard, is that there's a lot of new music discovery that happens on
Right.
YouTube, and it's kind of viral, is what it is. I mean, people will share a link to a cool music video, and that oftentimes for young people is the first exposure that they have to a new track from an artist, and then it kind of just balloons from there. And there's no reason why they couldn't listen to the song right in YouTube,
Right.
I mean, it's the same experience as clicking on a link in iTunes, right?
Yep.
So, and if there's a visual element, then that definitely fits into how younger people like to consume media right now. It's it's video and audio kind of experience is what a lot of young people like right now. So
2 days ago, there was a article over on current.org, and it talks about This American Life executive producer Alex Bloomberg launching a for-profit podcast network to produce original audio content outside of public radio.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also the co-host of NPR's Planet Money, which has always been a huge show, numbers-wise. And they're going to have shows that will focus on, a variety of different genres, and they're going to pursue, they're not going to pursue broadcast distribution of these. So they want to increase the use of smartphones, connected cars, and on-demand listening. And they've got some money. They went and got some venture funding. So I don't know how much they got, but he basically said this is a huge audience that will go digital, and we want to be there to welcome them. So I think folks are starting to recognize the mind shift is starting to change here. But
I think we've definitely reached a tipping point in this space where I think that there's going to be, I would say in the next 6 to 12 months, I think there's just going to be an explosion of investment in this space. I can just feel it kind of building.
Yep.
I think what's really behind it in some regards is the bigger media companies are starting to really recognize what the opportunity is, and how audio has been kind of a laggard behind the explosion of video. But there's a whole base of consumption that's being unmet right now. Around on-demand audio, and the whole radio space hasn't matured right along with on-demand video. So, I just think that there's a huge opportunity coming, and I think one of the key drivers is this whole Apple thing with CarPlay. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how that impacts the market over the next 3 to 5 years.
And another thing he said in this article on Current, he said, and they don't have huge plans. He says Bloomberg aids to give podcast creators partial ownership of their shows, possibly via individual contracts, while serving in a editor-developer role. Yep. He hopes to launch 3 shows in the first year, but isn't ready to announce any. So, 3 shows is not a lot to launch in the first year, especially if they've got money, but it is an interesting move. And if they're able to apply the NPR model, the audio type of model to it, I think they'll do very well.
Yeah, and the folks at Slate have been making some significant moves as well, and I would put them in the camp of a very similar kind of area as public radio. I mean, I think Slate, because a lot of the folks that work there and actually are building that podcast network are public radio people. I mean, that's what that's where those folks came from. It's really interesting what they're doing, and they're turning into really a news source as well in the podcasting space. It's really kind of interesting. I did an article in the Pottertainment magazine that just came out this month, talking about how podcasting, I believe, can positively influence the profitability of journalism in the future. And I think we're starting to see that actually happen. And Slate, I believe, is one of the first ones. And then National Public Radio has been a big player in that for many years. But I just feel like I think that there's a huge opportunity. I mean, because if you think about what's going on, people are consuming more content on their mobile devices,
right,
and less on PCs or computers. And what's the best audio or advertising medium on a mobile device? It's audio.
Right.
And so I think, that's part of what we're seeing the opportunity. And you look at Stitcher and you look at Swell and some of the newer podcasting on-demand radio platforms. I get a notification on my iPhone on a regular basis of some breaking news story that's happening around the world, and you click on it, and it's going to Stitcher,
right?
Of all places, right? It's not CNN, it's not these other places. It's audio. So I mean, it's an interesting thing as you think about monetization on a mobile platform and how weak that is for display advertising, and what the opportunity is for audio.
Now, it's I had neglected to see that Gary had released the magazine. He must just released it a couple of days ago because I was checking for it.
Yeah, he did. Yep.
And I guess I'm in there with an interview, so I guess I should be promoting that.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
So one thing that I talked about in the article, and it kind of goes back to what we were starting to talk about at the beginning of the show, and since that's out in the public, I'll talk a little bit about it. Matter of fact, maybe I can bring up the graph that, let's see if I can do this here. Let me drag this over here. What I did was I talked completely about the mobile space and some statistics on mobile. Mm-hmm. And I talked about global distribution and how global distribution today in the podcast space looks from the top to the bottom. And it really breaks down into, believe it or not, podcatchers, and that's kind of a broad category. These are talking about specifically people that have like a Stitcher or the podcast app from Apple or one of the many, many apps that are out there. That's number one. But number two, which is kind of weird, it's a different subset, is mobile applications. 3 is mobile phones and web browsers. Number 4 now is web browsers themselves. 5s are tablet web browsers. Number 6 is basically all the stuff out there that's not reporting. You take like the Libsyn app. They don't ever report a user agent, so you can't measure their app. It's really rolled up into the iOS numbers. And then number 7 is TV and set-top boxes for the video side. But here's really the kicker, and let me go down and just give you the top 10 mobile, and then I'm going to show you a chart that's going to rock your world here. iPhone 33.5, podcast for iOS, and that would be the app, 31.5, Android mobile, 8.7, iPad 7.0, Stitcher for iOS 4.3, Downcast for iOS 3.1, the first person to make a mark in Android is for an app is the BeyondPod app for Android at 2.5%. CF Network is basically a general catch-all for iOS apps. It's 2.0, Stitcher for Android 1.7, Chrome Mobile, which is kind of interesting, is 1.4. But let me show you the drop-off. Oh,
Todd, have you ever broke that out by content genre?
Yeah, we have. How come I don't have video? Let me see what's going on here.
It'd be interesting to see what the usage is, by content genre. So where are people consuming like sports podcasts, comedy? I mean, things like that, because I think it does vary a lot.
That would be that'd be a good one to do, wouldn't it? So let me.
Yeah, and I think I have an example of from something I saw this week on a new show that we launched. That's really interesting. But anyway, go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, so something's going on here. Must be I didn't shut off. It doesn't want to send over to the TriCaster. Let me find out why here. And but anyway, this chart, I think that you're going to, if I can get it up. Why in the H is this thing not working? It's one of those weirdo deals. It should be. It never fails me. Of course, the second I want to bring something up. All right, so destination there. This is the monitor. No audio. Send. And nothing. Okay. Well, that blows. Wonder what's going on there. That's weird. Okay, so anyway, here's how the chart looks. And it just drops off. If you look at the percentages, the number 10 most popular app per se is Chrome Mobile at 1.4% at number 10. And so here's the thing. The top 10 apps make up 95.7% of all mobile downloads. In May, we took a pool of 63,152,000 mobile downloads. 95.7% were made up from iPhone, Podcast for iOS, Android Mobile, iPad, Stitcher for iOS, Downcast for iOS, BeyondPod for Android, the standard iOS app, Stitcher for Android, and Chrome Mobile. And so here's the thing that's sick is that there is like another 30 apps that we're tracking that are all 1.4% and below. And Android only makes an entrance there twice. And, they're 3-4%. And, it's just, I don't get it. And, Winamp for Android's all the way at the bottom. This here. And believe it or not, Zune for Windows Phone 7 still there. Pod Trappers tracking, TuneIn Radio, Podcast, Pocket Cast for iOS, Pocket Cast for Android, Sony Ericsson with Android, HTC with Android, because sometimes we just only know what type of phone manufacturer it is. Podcruncher, BlackBerry, and I'm going from the bottom up. Windows Mobile, Samsung with Android, Podcatcher, Dogcatcher,
Dogcatcher,
ZDM Windows Mobile app, and those are like below 1.4%. And they're so far flat on the line, they weren't even worth breaking out.
Yeah.
And again, apps produced by Libsyn and Spreaker cannot be measured. They get no credit.
Yeah.
So they could be in there, but they don't send a user agent so that we're able to track. Now, we are starting to see some, I guess we are seeing certain instances, some Spreaker info, but it's not, they're still caching a lot.
Yeah.
We see one instance of Spreaker, and they're not all folks are being, are because I know they're not caching everyone right now.
Yeah.
But it's just amazing how on the mobile side, the domination, absolute domination by Apple.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you go,
Yeah. And also, I mean, Todd, I mean, one factor that's hard to factor into this is the fact that a lot of these apps and a lot of these platforms, and Apple's the exception here, don't have complete catalogs either.
no.
So it's a factor that's hard to factor into these numbers of really what kind of a sample they're really giving of their percentages just based on that difference. You know, I
Right.
mean, we've talked about this many times.
Yeah.
That Apple has the only really complete catalog
Right.
of podcasts. Nobody else has anywhere near as many podcasts as Apple has.
Yeah.
So their dominance is really even more dominant than what your ranking chart shows, I think.
Well, it's that's the numbers on a pretty big scale. 65 million download sampling for 1 month.
Yep.
I will say this though, that we've been looking at adding. Well, we have already started to see where the space is and size, because we're planning on database increase when we basically change. Blueberry's going to be expanding into more of a directory type of platform where you can find more shows. And we've been looking at the size of the active space. I think that's critical to active.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of shows die, and how long do you keep a show on a listing before you kill it?
Yeah.
But I think that number is going to be maybe not as big as the community thinks, but at the same time, maybe by us basically having the full catalog, they give people a secondary alternative. And we've actually got app developers now. Matter of fact, we signed an agreement last week with a app developer on the Android side. They're going to use our API to populate their app. And that's the big problem, is these guys don't have the ability to they make the app, but the infrastructure needed to run
the content in the app.
Yeah, to get to basically to syndicate and collect and group the all get all that, because they have to build a whole back end to feed that machine.
Yep. And to keep it current, right? Which is a whole challenge in itself. It's not as easy as I think you might think to actually have a robust platform that keeps updated.
And with 8 or 9 years here of experience and updating, and doing pulling feeds and dealing with all the malarkey that goes on with the stuff people do, I think we've got a pretty good handle on that. Now, the only challenge then is we're trying to come up. Okay, so let's some shows we pull their feed once every 24 hours, and people are a little more demanding of wanting more quicker updates. So what we'll probably watch as people are subscribed to shows through their interface, we'll actually set those shows to a higher pull level, and that'll offset some of the loading. And if you've got a show that only updates once a week, and there's no need to pull that show every 3 hours. But at the same time, if someone subscribed to that show, we want to make sure that within about an hour of that show coming online, that we've pulled it and it's in their in their inventory. And that's not it's not as easzy.
Oh, it's tricky. It's tricky. I mean, because what do? Check the headers of the feed more frequently than you do a full scan? I mean, I think that's the other part of it that makes it a challenge, is because people are not always entirely regular when they publish, right? And you don't want to get in a situation where your system thinks that an episode is going to come out every Thursday, and they push it out on Wednesday morning. And your system doesn't expect to see it, so it doesn't scan it, right? So, yeah.
And it's so it's one of those challenges that you just have to live with and deal with, and I think we're well suited to be able to handle the move. But going back to what you were talking about earlier about Slate, Slate produces a certain type of content, and Slate's going to affect to a largely, I think, a certain demographic of folks, and I don't know if Slate is going to be able to, they're pretty political.
They are. Well, yeah. They try and live in this space of true journalism, though. I mean, I think that they're not a partisan,
Just like CNN and Fox try to live. CNN is the Democrat national news, and the Fox is the Republican national news. So that's as far as partisan is.
I know. But I think as you think about, the next generation of journalism here, I think, it's hard to be successful in this space or in the journalism space and not be a little partisan, because playing in the middle, there's nobody in the middle.
Here's the thing. The journalists need to start being journalists again. And I think what's going to happen is...
But that's expensive, Todd, to be a journalist. Come on. It's much easier to just publish press releases, right?
Well, and I think there's an opportunity for someone, and if they report the news and report stuff that is really happening in this world, instead of fluff stories and puff stories, I think they'll make some money. If I have a prediction that the major media folks are going to really be impacted at some point. People are going to wake up and say, "Why didn't you tell us about this?" Because largely the folks.
Do we really want to know, Todd?
Yeah, I think people should, and I think people are pretty much sheep at this point. They, when they turn in to watch John Mayer to get their news, it's that's not news. That's entertainment.
Well, that's the issue, right? Do people want to be entertained, or do they want to be informed? I think that's the challenge for the next generation, right? Is how much of a democracy do we want to have here? And to have a democracy that holds government accountable, we need to be informed. But we're so busy following, the shiny thing, right? Or what's popular, or what's, the latest movie or the latest star and celebrity. And I know I'm kind of part of that world now too, a little bit. It distracts us from what's important.
Right. I think, example, some things that'll happen is when things are said in the news and then something completely opposite happens, and people wake up to, $10 gas, or all of a sudden business have moved out of towns because the minimum wage has been increased to $15. And I think,
you're not talking about Seattle at all.
No, not at all. And if I was a small business owner in Seattle, I think I'd be looking to leave.
But it's so beautiful up here, Todd.
Yeah, okay. So, but as a high school graduate who is starting an entry-level job worth $15, I'm going to tell you no, in large part.
Well, if you're somebody that's looking for a job, this is probably a good place because you're going to get paid a little bit anyway.
Yeah. But,
well, I know back in the 80s when I was working, at kind of low wage jobs, my wage was like $2.35 an hour, and I thought that was great.
Yeah,
how things have changed.
My dad paid me slave wages. I got paid $1.25, and I'm not that old, and but I got all the gas I could put in my vehicle. So, it was an offset. But when you're a teenager and you're working for dad, you're lucky to get $1.25. Most kids are working for free.
Yeah. Well, and gas now is almost $5 a gallon. Back when I was making $2.35 an hour, gas was only like 75 cents. So
yeah, even if this,
I guess it's all proportional.
And if this thing in Iraq continues, it'll be 10. So we'll see how people like it now. Like a $10 gas, they say, why don't we send some troops back into Iraq? The opinion may change a little bit,
Yeah, I saw your post on Facebook about that, and I had to comment. Yeah.
Well, here's a situation. And I don't want to get political, but when someone puts 15 people on their knees and summarily executes them without any regard for anything, we're in trouble. We're in real trouble, and it doesn't matter where that violence is occurring. I know genocide has happened a lot in many other countries as well.
Yeah,
It's just not there, but it's
well, it's a sad state that humans feel like they have to live like that.
It's
right?
People have been fighting over religion since the beginning of time, so I don't think you're ever going to stop it. But it's
really stupid.
it's incredible. It's at this date and age, but I think a lot of it has to do with suppression of information. People just do not, in those countries, you think we're living hog on the, high in the hog here with information, and basically we can go out and get different opinions and stuff, and I don't think people in those countries do.
Yeah, and it's also about power and money
Right.
too. What's going on over there too? I mean, if you think about it,
Yeah.
that area of the Middle East, is the second largest producer of oil in the world.
Yeah.
So if the terrorists can take that over and get control of that, they have a lot of power.
Yeah. Power and control.
And you notice that once they took over that big refinery, that all of a sudden got the U.S.'s attention again. Didn't it?
Unless you want $10 gas, it should have got people's attention.
Yeah, well, it did. But there is a correlation there of why there's so much conflict in Iraq. Don't get distracted too much from the political stuff and the things that you hear. I think it's about economic and national security is what's going on there, and it's always been what that conflict was about.
But at the same time, and again, I don't want to get political, we're cutting our own throats here by limiting U.S. production of our own natural resources. But I guess if the goal is to use everyone else's up first, which I don't think is the goal.
Well, yeah. So anyway, we should probably get back to
But
media.
if the media though, if you go back and you look at the media spin on that particular story, it's all about who to blame, and not necessarily the ultimate impact and the real story behind what's going on. And so that's the thing that drives me crazy is if people heard the real story, kept the politics out of it, which they never can.
Yeah.
I think there's a good opportunity for folks. So, Slate being kind of off the cuff half the time anyway, they're probably going to make light of it and joke about it. But at the same time, there's probably media opportunities out there for folks that want to create real news. I know there's a few people trying. I don't know how well they're doing though.
Well, I do get a sense that there's a little bit of a pushback happening right now around content that is, like I say, not as real, I guess, or not as authentic. And I think podcasting is part of that trend, and I think that could ultimately lead to like what you're talking about, Todd, where we as a culture and we as a society start to value quality journalistic content again. Is that I think we're starting to realize, with the government surveillance and a lot of the fluff and things that we hear, is that there's a downside to that, and that not being informed puts us in a vulnerable position as a society and as a population, where we can get taken advantage of, and if we're distracted. And I think that's part of kind of a bigger trend that's happening. It may take 10 or 15 years for this to fully play out, but it has to come full circle again, I think, at some point.
Yeah. Oh, guess what started working? Yeah, let me show this to you now.
Your TriCaster actually
I
was working?
I had to press a couple of buttons here, so let's see if I can make this bigger. So here, this is Word, Google Docs. All right, here we go. You should be able to see this. So there's the chart. There's the
That, Todd, that looks a lot like the podcasting space.
that's the mobile.
If you think about it,
that's
right?
the mobile podcasting space.
No, but I'm saying, content.
Oh, it's about the same curve for content.
Downloads.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could have day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 down. Yeah, on the bottom, it almost looks the same.
Yeah, it's like, this is a mirror of what you see from a content perspective too, not just from a application usage perspective. I guess what this tells me is that this is just how things work, in the online space, and it's no big surprise to me. I think that there's always been, I mean, just look at YouTube, right? There's big hits, and then there's lots of less successful videos, and it's the same pattern.
But
This is what you just expect.
But if you look at that line, it's you can see how flat it gets about after. But we're down here at the very bottom where that's about 10 clicks in. That's just a percent. That's and then at the top that's like 35%. That charts is 0 to like 35.
But this also tells me that we are still a hits-driven culture, right?
Well,
people gravitate. People are. I hate to say this, but people are kind of like sheep. They all like to follow the same thing.
Yeah.
But it's also, those apps that are driving that high spike at the beginning are quality platforms, been around a long time,
right.
that have a lot of devices in the market. So it definitely makes a lot of sense that they're showing that kind of dominance in the market. But it also says that there's not a lot of success to be had online for a lot of different companies.
And also, I'll say that there's probably for a lot of folks, there's not a lot of sense to have their own app, unless you're a very, very big show.
Yeah.
Regardless of what people say, people are because they're using the default iOS app.
Well, I mean, Todd, it's also, what's the delta between what the cost is of getting an app too? I mean, if it's expensive, yeah, I agree with you. It's not worth it. But if it's cheap, like when we talked to the guy from Spreaker last week, if he can do an app for $99,
that's a great
probably
deal.
worth it.
It's worth it. Yeah, I agree. It's a good deal. Yeah. And matter of fact, I'm getting my graphics together. I'm going to have him do both a Android and iOS app for Geek News Central. We'll see how it goes. And I played with the app, and let's just be realistic. It's very simple. It's a very simple app. It's not fancy in any regard. But
well,
guess
and that's
what?
exactly what my focus has been on the Podcast One apps too. I mean, the big update that's coming right now, that I'm doing tests on right now, is my focus was trying to make the app simpler, not more complex.
I was going to try.
I
was going to try to find it here on my phone because I loaded one show, and let's see, where the heck was it? Is it the? Let's see if I can.
I don't have the right device down here that I can actually hold it up to the screen to show the Podcast One app.
My kids have been downloading games. That's what happens when you let them use your phone. That's the actual Spreaker app itself. That's not it. I don't know what I did with it. Maybe I deleted the app the show that I was looking at. But all it does is a little splash screen, and then it brings up a playlist, and that's really the extent of the integration. I have way too many apps on my phone.
Well, that's exactly what the Dan Patrick show has, that's on Podcast One, and then the Adam Carolla show. If you look at their app, it's just you load it, and it's just got a list of episodes, and it has some ways to engage in their social platforms. But that's it.
Yeah, there's no social engagement with this at all. It's strictly you play it and you're done. And I think there's a way you can send a comment back, an audio comment or something, but it's very, very limited. I don't know what happened to that app. I wonder if there it is. Okay, so I'm going to try to hold it up the screen so people can see, and it's going to launch. Impartial Geek is the name of the show that I downloaded. And
so that's a Spreaker app.
This is a Spreaker app. Whoops.
Okay.
Oh, crap. And let's see here. There's 2 tracks they're showing in his. They haven't obviously done a show recently, There's some info about the show. So there's a little info page about the show. Well, that wasn't working. And of course, there's a Spreaker logo at the bottom of it. But it says there's an email, Twitter address, the website, and then there's the actual. You can actually just click play, and then this is what the play page. That's what the page looks like. Oh, they had John on as an interview from Geek Beat. But that's what the play page looks like.
Oh, okay.
And then you can love the article, or you can. They've got the ability here then they've got the push where you can actually push into Twitter, Facebook, and so forth. So they do have the ability to use the at least on the iTunes, the built-in stuff. So overall, for $100 a year, can't
It's
beat
a decent app.
Yeah, it's an app, and it gets people your content.
Yep.
So,
but it's only going to do it for one show, right? It's
one
not going to
show, right?
Yeah. It doesn't have the ability to add multiple shows.
That's right. And I just, like I told my team, if you want an app on there in Spreaker, get your $200 out. Plus, I'm going to make them pay the $49 a year Spreaker fee to have the first level of service beyond $5, and then you can, you're good. You have enough content on there to make it worthwhile. So that's what I've told my other host.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, if it gets us a few, for $100, it's, if 100 people listen, it's been worth it, so we'll see. But go ahead.
Yeah, Todd, I wanted to take our conversation back a little bit to how people consume various types of genres of podcasts.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you've really thought about this or not, but we just launched this past week a new show for Snooki. So I don't know if you're familiar with who she is, but
isn't she that
Jersey Shore star?
Rob. Yeah. Okay. All right, go ahead.
No. I mean, so this is part of what I'm talking about, right? When I talk about content, how diverse the podcasting space needs to become, right? So that's part of why I went to Podcast One to begin with, was that I wanted to play in this space where we're trying to pioneer into new genres of content, right? To maybe appeal to more listeners that maybe not traditional or typical podcast consumers, right? And Snooki certainly fits into that strategy, I would say. She's got close to 7 million followers on Twitter. She's got 12 million followers on Facebook. So she's got an extremely large social network. And so we launched her show this past week, and it exploded. I mean, it was like one of the biggest shows on our network the first day. So that tells you a little bit. And her ranking in iTunes didn't actually go to the top. So, I mean, you would have thought with the kind of numbers that she was polling that she would be in the top rankings of iTunes. But what was different about how she launched her show was she launched her show on her social platforms, and she linked to players on her social platforms, and that's how people consumed her show. So it wasn't through iTunes.
So they didn't even use a mobile app. They were just going to a website or wherever she was.
Well, they may have used like the Podcast One app and maybe streamed it off of their mobile devices, off of her Facebook page,
right?
The Facebook app or the Twitter app. But her ranking in iTunes didn't go to the top like it should have. In a traditional podcast, I think what happened, and we're still analyzing this, but I think she had a huge growth in consumption off of podcasting platforms.
Well, I think probably what will happen is because she has a pre-established social network, I don't think that is, to me, I'm not surprised at all. And that will work for celebrities.
Yeah, that's right.
For sure. And they should be able. Now, the question is what happens over the long haul. Will she be able to retain their interest, and will they
That's right.
Will they stay? That's where you guys will be able to look at it from a long haul
Well, and
standpoint.
that's up to her. I mean,
Right.
how does she engage her audience in her show is key.
Yeah.
But I think it's a really interesting example. As we look at this space, and we move into genres of content, professional wrestlers, NASCAR. I mean, all these kind of very, very popular areas that a lot of people in this country like to follow, more in the heartland, and less. It's
Right.
more of a general kind of population kind of area of kind of following. We could see a lot of consumption of the same content off of podcast platforms, because people don't even know what a podcast is. All they want to get to is Snooki's audio
Right.
program.
Right.
And somehow we need to be able to track that stuff too. And I guess we can through our servers, right?
Right. Yeah. If it's
But
being,
it's not
if it's
not
being,
necessarily going to go to iTunes, is what I'm saying.
oh, and that's good. I think iTunes has too much power.
Yeah.
And it's believe me, I've said many, many times, iTunes has not helped the podcasting space. I don't get me wrong, we like what they do, but it stagnated the independent development for many, many years. There wasn't a lot of thinking outside the box.
Other things, yeah.
Right, and that's
Yeah.
why Android is where it is, because there hasn't been any innovation on the Android side to make it compelling enough for people to do it, and there's not a default Android app. It's not something Google pushes, and we don't have, so not surprising.
Maybe there doesn't need to be on Android. Maybe it's just, I don't know. I mean, I think that what we need to look at is what's the consumption coming off of the Android platform, not necessarily off of podcast apps on Android.
Yeah, well, it's like I said, it's municipal. It's minimi.
It's tiny still, huh?
Yeah, but there is a certain percentage of mobile browsers, and that's kind of a general category. So people could be coming with a mobile browser, but I don't know how many people are actually doing that on the Android side. I know they're doing it heavily on the iOS.
Well, as you think about, the fairly recent talk or rumor that Twitter was looking at acquiring SoundCloud,
Right.
I think it's a little bit of a glimpse into what we're talking about here. Is that these social platforms may become, or already are, I suppose, the place where people find and discover media.
If I was a podcaster and SoundCloud had been if I was a podcaster on SoundCloud and Twitter had acquired SoundCloud, I'd be worried. I continue to cringe about people that are staking their entire show, the show
Well, yeah.
on SoundCloud, and I had to test, like one lady the other day, she says, well, I'm leaving your hosting service because I can go to SoundCloud and it's cheaper. And I'm like, why don't you think about these 5 things? And I basically listed the things, right off the top of my head that I could share with her. And she said, I hadn't thought about that. You're right. And she retained hosting with us and just going to have her show over there as a second point of presence. But she was ready to move lock, stock, and barrel over to SoundCloud because she was going to save, $12 or something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I would say too, being on SoundCloud as your primary distribution platform is probably not a wise choice.
it's a great place to be from a distribution standpoint. You should be over there, should have your show listed over there, but not
as a primary distribution.
No, you want your own location for people to come back to, something that you own and control.
Yeah.
But and I think people are we see it every day. We migrate folks, probably a dozen a day off of the what I call vertical or locked in platforms, and people realize that they get, what happens is they do their show for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, and those that stick, they all of a sudden wake up and said, holy crap, my show's doing good. I want to do this on this platform and I can't.
Yeah.
And then they literally go into a meltdown and mild panic and, oh my God, I need to I need to move, and and it's impactful when they have to do that. It's not clean to move.
Yeah, and
off
I don't
of,
believe that SoundCloud has the ability to do any 301 redirects either, or anything like that. So you're in a tough spot, or do they? Have you heard of that?
Yeah, they've been hard. They've got a fortress wall over there, but I'm working the fortress wall to try to.
Oh, you are.
Because they're
So
not being counted.
Yeah, are you working with Ben over there?
We're doing some emails back and forth to some team members over there. So trying to get to the point where we can at least get a redirect code in there and see what, at least allow them that have shows over there as secondary points of presence. But everyone's, they, it's how it goes. It's a typical type of thing trying to make headway there. It isn't easy. But
yeah. It's not their focus area.
No.
It just isn't.
No, and it's that part of their business is, I wouldn't say it, I don't know if it's a hobby, but I think it's more of an experiment.
Well, I think it's just an effort on their part to appear to be relevant in the overall audio space. Yeah.
Someone was saying, I was reading something somewhere, I can't remember what the guy was. He was talking about a specific service that he was trying. I don't think I've got it available here easily.
Oh, Todd, does TuneIn show up on your ranked list of apps?
They do, and I think I took that article. Let me see if I think I closed it. Let me look for it here.
And is Swell on there too?
No, I don't see Swell.
Well, also keep in mind Swell has a fairly small catalog. I think they're like at 5,000 shows or something like that. It's a pretty small catalog. Yeah. And the same with, I think Stitcher, I believe, is at like 25,000, I think.
Let's see. I should load the whole spreadsheet. Let me see. TuneIn is, Rob, it's number like 25 of 30.
25, yeah.
Yeah.
And they say that they have a huge catalog, but I don't believe it.
Well, they're not getting any, if they're getting podcast penetration, it's at least with the shows that we track.
Yeah.
Very small numbers, less than 1%.
So as you look at that chart, Stitcher obviously has between Android and the iOS platform, they have about 4 or 5% of the market.
Let's see here. Stitcher for iOS 4.3, Stitcher for Android 1.7, so 6%.
Total of 6%. So you have Stitcher and then Downcast.
And Downcast has 3.1.
Just on
iOS.
Just on iOS, because Downcast is not on Android.
No. Right. And Beyond Pod is on Android at 2.5. They're the biggest on Android. But
they're not on iOS.
No.
Right. Okay.
But
it's interesting how they've not gone cross-platform.
And here's another thing too. Stitcher is up. They were, I think, when we met in Vegas, they were around 4%. I'd have to go back and look at the slides, but they were, they've gained a couple percentage points. Stitcher has.
Mm-hmm.
But 6% compared to everything else that's going on, I think Stitcher's doing a good job.
That's a big percentage. I mean, that puts them right next to the iPad, doesn't it?
The iPad standalone, and that's not 7. Right? Yeah, but remember the when I say iPad, that means someone's went with a browser with the iPad to a show and listened or watched.
Gotcha.
The podcast for iOS app
is part of that other number.
Right. Yeah. It's both, which is at 31.5%.
So the iPhone listing there at the very top, that's off of the podcast app.
That's just
the
browser.
The integrated podcast experience, or is that like off of the iOS podcast app? That's not on the iOS
that's
podcast?
Like it could be a combination of things. It could be largely it's people using the iPhone to go to a page and clicking play.
in the Safari browser?
Right.
Okay.
So, and Angelo will have to clarify that with me, and I'll double check that with him. But I know that we specifically broke up because I have a whole listing for podcasts for iOS. And if you look at the app usage alone, we look at podcasts for iOS, we look at Stitcher for iOS, Downcast for iOS, Beyond Pod for Android. The mobile apps are the majority of the consumption. It is higher. But then you go back and we roll back to the iPhone and the iPad. Now, remember, some of those iPhone numbers could be some devices that don't report a user agent. So, we have a hard time breaking. We can't break some of those out. There could be a player out there that's doing real well that has something on the iPhone, and we just don't know.
Well, Todd, also, I believe that there's a couple of generations of iPhones out there that
Right.
weren't able to be upgraded to the iOS 7 platform that are still sitting in 5 and 6, probably.
And they're using, and still people use iTunes a lot, believe it or not. They manage their subscriptions through iTunes. Now, it's transparent in iOS now where those subscriptions turn up in the actual podcast app. So
it's a complicated landscape, and it's hard to parse this stuff out because it's so integrated and ubiquitous and so different across different versions of the operating system and things like that. I know when the podcast app comes out for Windows Phone 8.1, you're going to see a drop off in that Zoom number too, because a lot of those users that have been using the Zune kind of podcast area, it's going to go away.
Yeah. But it's going back to the global look and not just looking at just the apps themselves or the mobile side. Taking mobile and looking at the entire space again. Number one are podcatchers, and podcatchers would be included with the podcast for iOS and the Stitcher for iOS. And number two is mobile applications. Number three is mobile phone web browsers. Now, it's kind of a weird breakout, but there is a difference. And then regular web browsers for your screen, tablet web browsers,
tablets,
and then we look at tablet web browsers, and then and I ought to get the percentages up for that so you can see the breakout. But it is pretty. It is a weird space right now, and really. It doesn't really matter how people are consuming, long as they're consuming but we want people to consume. We want to make it as easy for them to get it as possible.
Todd, is there a way that you can roll up those numbers into what percentage of people are consuming audio podcasts in a browser separate? From an app?
Yeah, we've got and that I do have that percentage broken out. I don't have it here in front of me. I just have them listed 1 through 7. But I do have mobile phone web browsers as a breakout.
Well, just web browsers, no matter what device. It could be a PC, tablet, or a phone.
I've got them broke out in 3 categories. I got them mobile phones, web browsers on Firefox or Chrome, and then tablet web browsers.
Tablet web browsers. Okay.
Yes, I break those out in three different sections. And those are number 3, number 4, number 5 in ranking. Mobile phone web browsers.
What if you were to total up all those numbers? What would it total up to?
I don't have the percentages in front of me.
You don't? Okay. No.
But I will say this: TV set-top boxes are a couple percentage points at number 7. So they're that number at number 7 is pretty small. But it really kind of is probably like. Podcatchers are probably 37%, and then moving down. I think that was actually, I remember seeing that number somewhere. But it's really it's pretty easy. Do the math here. 33, and you get pretty close to the number. But it is.
So would you say that it's pretty close to a 50-50 deal between podcast apps and browsers, just in general?
I think apps are definitely winning by a few percentage points.
Okay.
Not much. It's pretty close.
It's still pretty okay.
Yeah, and I think it makes up like maybe on mobile probably 75% or something like that. That's just off the top of my head here.
Really?
And I
Okay.
have to pull the number. Actually, I can probably pull it pretty easy. We've got the
Yeah, because
ability.
I mean, I think it's part of that question that I had earlier about where consumption is happening based on genre of content. Um, is there a
Oh
higher
yeah, yeah.
percentage of people that are listening to this stuff? So let's say it's a comedy podcast or it's a snooky podcast. Are
Right.
more people going to be gravitated toward it in a browser versus a podcast app? And my gut tells me that over time, I as new people jump in, get attracted to this content, that we're going to see probably a migration. People are going to discover it in a browser or in a social app, right?
Right.
Facebook, Twitter, and then they'll become fans of that show, and then they'll realize, I can just get a podcast app and get Stitcher, or I can get that show regularly in in an app on iOS or on Android. So I think this browser-based focus on certain genres of content may be a way that we can grow the space.
Yeah.
Is kind of where I'm leading on this.
I'm seeing if I can pull a report. Here's something that's gonna make fun of people laugh. Is and when we break stuff out, we call it by clients, by class. Let's see if I can open this up. Is that the right one I want? Too many spreadsheets here.
Buried in the data. I know you love data.
Oh yeah, and I drive Angelo absolutely apeshit crazy with the number of things I have him run. He does, he makes it real easy for me. He gives me everything in totals. He doesn't give me he doesn't get I have to, and then I have to it's just a simple formula to apply to the stupid spreadsheet. But okay, so
The old executive summary. Huh?
yeah. If I'm looking at this, let's see, what's the total here for this sample? Okay, so for example, desktop applications in May, we had a little over 30 million downloads. So that would be web browsers, iTunes, only playing on right within the desk, not on the mobile.
Okay.
Then mobile applications, there's several categories. So there's like 18 million on mobile applications, 15, almost 16 million on mobile web browsers.
Okay.
So, there's just, 15 and 16, 31 million compared to 30 million. So just a little bit difference. And then on desktop web browsers, my sampling was 9 million. Tablet, now here's something interesting. Tablet and pads are basically any type of tablet, just under 2.7 million. And then here's where the fall off happens. TV set-top boxes, about 250,000.
So you could draw a kind of like a conceptual visualization here that the bigger the screen gets, the less consumption of podcasts.
Right now, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So as the screen gets smaller and smaller, the consumption of audio content goes up.
Yeah. And then I was looking at, I have another one here that was kind of cool. So let's talk about clients.
Yeah.
I've got 20 clients that I'm tracking. And this is really kind of actually 19. So I've got iOS phone, iPad, Windows, Macintosh, Android, Linux, multi-platform, Symbian, BlackBerry OS, blog applications, Chromebook OS, Unix OS 2, proprietary, Windows Mobile, Nintendo Wii, BOS, and even Amiga. Now,
How the hell did Amiga get on there?
that's the question. So A Garnet OS, and I'm looking at the note here. That's the older Palm OS.
Jeez.
So, how many downloads do you think that the Garnet OS Palm got?
The Garmin OS?
Garnet
You mean
OS, the older Palm operating system. Now, this is going to blow people away.
There's still a lot of people with old devices out there. is
Of
what you're telling me.
63 million, there was one. Amiga, 2.
Two. Okay.
Nintendo Wii,
Okay.
50.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's just, it's kind of crazy. It's like there's, I'm tracking all the way down to that level. I would never report that, but I just pulled the spreadsheet up, and I'm looking at these, these platforms. But, the empty user agents, the folks that are not reporting anything are really hurting us. These developers that don't put anything on. I probably had about 1 million downloads that I just, I knew it came from something that's real, but I couldn't really place this is what this is on it.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell if it come from Linux and the Linux actually is doing pretty good. Linux itself is about 1.5 million total downloads a month. So the Linux, but here's really the big delta though. If you look at just Android, anything Android whatsoever, it looks like, if I get my zeros right here, it's Manimi. It's like 3.4. No, yeah, 3.8 million. I got a couple of columns here I got to add up. Like 3.8 million on just Android alone. And then
So is that part of the Chrome OS, or is that a separate?
that's separate.
breakout?
Yeah, and
That's a
Chrome
separate
OS is tiny. Chrome OS is like 24,000.
Okay.
So it's not big. And I'm giving a lot of secrets away here. But,
yeah, right. Big secret. Chrome OS is not popular.
Well,
yeah.
but it's interesting that little operating system will get gets 24,000 downloads.
That little operating system.
Yeah, but that's for people that have Chromebooks.
I know exactly. That's what I'm asking about. Yeah. So it's probably what, as far as major operating systems, where does Windows and
Windows is definitely definitely
is it number two or number one?
No, it's number one. 21 million is the breakout for Windows, and this would be browsers and anything that's related to Windows, Windows Phone, Windows, any Windows product is at 21 million.
So it's number one.
Oh yeah. Now iOS is really number one.
Based on what? Just overall numbers?
Yeah,
Of
if you
downloads?
look at clients, and the way I break this out is these are clients. iOS, anything iOS is 30 million. Almost
I see what you're saying.
31 million. Windows is like 21 million. Now, let's back that up. And so iOS and Mac combined. So this would be if you can just consider someone's notebook or something non-iOS, this could be browsers, 18 million on Mac. And I'm rounding here. In these cases, I'm rounding down in all cases. So, and
I'm sure that the Mac is pretty small number because there's just not that many Macs out there.
Well, compared to Windows, it's 18 million for Mac and 21 million for.
Oh, it's pretty close.
Yeah, pretty close. But if you do the combined ecosystem of iOS and Mac, and they're killing it, 48 million of a 63 million sample, Rob.
Wow, that's huge.
It's huge. And I don't think I've ever talked about these numbers like this in this depth, but it should give people pause. It should make them, quite honestly, some people need to wake up, and I keep telling the Android community, you need to wake the hell up. There's a missed
Yeah.
opportunity here. And
Well,
those
and
of
it's
you,
an opportunity to grow the space.
whoa,
Grow,
yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's
That
yeah.
number, that Android number, should be more than iOS globally. And really, and here's another thing too. It's podcasters' fault. Podcasters do what's easy. Go subscribe via iTunes. They never tell people go subscribe via their Android device.
Well, because there hasn't been a focal point of place where the podcasters feel comfortable driving people to.
But they should. They should.
I know, but where? I mean, which? I guess it would be Downcast or
Yeah.
right.
There's what, you have to make a line in the sand somewhere. Actually, it would be Beyond Pod for Android.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Beyond Pod is the one. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I have it. Yeah, I have that app loaded on my Nexus 7. So I'll have to go play around with that and see what shows are in there.
I've just shared some of the stuff I was going to share in PodMag 5.
Yeah, well, those that subscribe get some early benefit here.
Yeah, so
that's
I will.
all I have to say.
I'll definitely. I think that was I was going to focus on my next article, and I
Well,
just
you should still do the article.
Yeah.
I think it's.
yeah.
I mean, we covered it pretty quickly here, so it's a good tease.
But I think
For
people
what's
really,
coming.
need to understand there's plenty of opportunity to grow. And this is just, and what would be really cool is if we could see YouTube's numbers, how this compared.
Delta works. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know though. Is YouTube really? I'm not so sure that it's a factor in this space.
Well, not for
I don't
us,
know.
but I'd like to see where the deltas were, how they see consumption.
Oh,
You
I
know,
see what you're saying.
Kind of on the same client level for a better retrospect. But
I would think it's hard to say. You're right. I would think that YouTube consumption on Android would be a lot higher as a percentage
yeah, potentially.
because it's part of Google, right?
Right.
So it's the same thing. If Google decided to come out with a podcast area as part of their Google Play platform, I think it would get a huge spike in usage. I don't know if Google's ever going to do that or not. It would be an interesting development if they did.
Now, just as a disclaimer, and I shouldn't show this page because Angela will get pissed for showing the URL. I wonder if I can. I don't think I can mask that, can I? Let me see if I can delete that.
All right, Todd. So what are you up to here?
So what I was going to show you
here?
is basically I've got the ability to. These are the reports I can pull. I mean, I have to wait till I can pull June now, but it would be a partial report. But I can pull these reports on demand, really at any time to take a look. I don't have to wait for Angela to do this, but we work with ESPN and a lot of other folks, and when I process that data sets, I just told you those numbers. That doesn't include ESPN's numbers. I'm not allowed to talk about anything about their data at all, and breakouts and where they and I can't. So anything I talk about is technically the Blueberry community as a whole,
Sure.
folks that are using our stat system, but. And I do have some ecosystem numbers I'll share at a later date that I know basically based on what we're seeing and how many people are using our platform, what the audience, I think the audience size of people listening to podcasts is bigger, much, much bigger than what people are, the number that's been floated around quite a bit.
Well, I mean, as far as downloads, are you talking about
The number of people who, maybe in the United States that are actually listening to a podcast.
So
I think
based on what the Edison research numbers, is that what you're talking about?
I think their numbers are low.
Are low.
Yeah. And we'll know more as I need a little bit bigger data set. I've got a pretty good data set, but I need a little bit bigger to extrapolate out, because what we're starting to do now, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for even talking about this, but let me switch back. is
Well,
that
Todd, I think that the methodology that the Edison folks have always had was based on traditional podcast consumption behaviors. And I
oh
think what we've talked about here on the show today is not necessarily
no,
traditional
well, this is
podcast consumption.
it's just raw data, you
Yeah.
know. So, but what we're starting to do now is we're looking at. I know that, for example, my IP on my computer. I know what my IP is, and I can now within our system we can break out the number of. Okay, I can track by IP, not by person, but by IP. I can track. Well, I better be quiet. It's pretty cool what you can see, and it goes into how many podcasts do people listen to and that kind of stuff. So it's an interesting space to see the varied interest of listeners. Just
Do you have an idea of what the average number of?
I can't say that yet. I've been that I know I will get killed in my next meeting. I'll get yelled at, so I can't release that yet.
Well, I didn't ask the question.
What is the
yeah,
average?
Yeah. What's the average number of podcast series that an average listener subscribes to?
I can't say that because if
you can't say that. Okay.
No. But I will say this: shows that cross promote. It's a good idea to cross promote. If you're cross promoting, you're probably doing your neighbor a decent favor.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah,
I mean that's a proven strategy from other forms of media too.
Right.
From radio to television.
Yeah, and if you can get some partners where you're obviously all promoting each other on a regular basis, that's one of the reasons why I'm going to grow Geek News Central's core number of shows. I've got 2 people already that have replied to a data call I did earlier in the week that basically said I want to grow the number of shows on the site, and here were kind of some of my ideas and suggestions, and some folks have come back with some other stuff, which is pretty cool. So we may even be having a lady joining us as a lady podcaster, so I'm really excited about that. Longtime friend of mine that she's been a long-time podcaster. I'm really excited that she could be joining the family here.
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to have a balance of men and women hosts of shows.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing, at Podcast One, is that we do have a balance of that. And I think it's important because, half the population is female.
And a lot of ladies are listening. We're seeing a big percentage of women that are tuning in now where they weren't before. And it's just because it's become easier. So the demographic of the ladies checking in is big, and I think it's important. And there's a lot of strong personalities out there that I hope will continue to grow their shows and so forth.
I mean, I think it's always been a fairly significant percentage. It's always been, I think, or at least for the last few years, probably in the 30 to 40% range of podcast consumers are female.
Yeah.
So it's been that way for a long time.
And I think at some point it's going to get closer to 50-50. And the guys are probably always lead by a little bit, but I think it won't be too long before it's a even audience. And that's a good thing.
And once we hit that, that's a milestone that we've really crossed over the line to a mainstream kind of medium.
Yeah, because you look at the early days, it was. I did some of those early demographic data numbers, and I just know off the top of my head, it was like we were lucky if we had 4 or 5% of the audience was ladies, and then it's, of course, I do a tech show, so it's guy heavy anyway. But overall, now that number is, and it's taken time, but it's good.
Well, and I think it gets back to what we've been talking about all along: is that your consumption patterns and the demographics vary dramatically across genres of content.
Right.
Tech is always going to lean, 65 to 75% male. That's just the way it's always been. But maybe content around cooking and comedy kind of tends to be more 50-50. It depends on who the host is, and depends on what he's talking about. It depends on all these factors.
But I'll tell you, my lady audience are it sounds weird to say it that way, but the number of women listening to my show has grown, and I get probably as much feedback from them now than I do from the guys. And,
So what would you guess is your percentage breakout on that
oh,
your show?
I'm probably at 20%, but I'm a tech show, so
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pretty happy with that.
I think that's great.
Yeah, and it used to be single digits, so.
Yep. And I think more and more women are getting into tech all the time, and I think it's definitely a good trend.
My wife is not I don't consider her a techie at all, but in recent months she surprised me more and more. And my wife's Japanese, and English is a second language for her, so she still migrates to a lot of Japanese content on the internet and so forth, but she now sends me links all the time to stuff that she's found that talks about apps and this and that. And so I see from and again, she's still not a techie. I have to help her with a lot of stuff that she does on the computer or so forth. But if my wife is increasing in the amount of stuff that she's saying, oh my God, that's cool, I want that app, or I want this, or, it, to me, that shows the ladies are getting more engaged. Now, one thing I wish that the developers would do is better photo management. There's got to be, because my wife takes, what is it with photo management? Because you know what it is? We're taking so many pictures.
Yeah.
And, I don't have a problem but she's like a maniac with that iPad and taking pictures.
With the iPad?
Oh my God. She's one of these people holding that thing up and taking a photo. Now she's getting a new iPhone today. She's still got an iPhone 4, so she's going to a 5, whatever the 5S is. We're going to upgrade her before we go on vacation. And I'm sure it'll switch to this because it has a better camera. But she says, well, I'll just get the 16 gig. I'm like, are you crazy? No, I'll be unloading that thing every 3 days. You're getting a 64 gig device. And I wish it had more space because photos and videos. And
that's a lot of storage in a phone, 64 gigs.
Well, it's not when they're taking pictures. For you and me, that's a lot. But who's taking the pictures in your family? Are you or your wife taking pictures?
I think we're both probably equal.
It's definitely my wife's got me beat like 20-1. So. But I think I wish there was a better. If someone out there has a fantastic photo management tool for iOS, let me know, because to be honest with you, I have to.
It's called Flickr. Isn't it?
She sends everything to Facebook, and
oh, she does, yeah.
And she has 50 private Facebook things. I was just like, this is not the place for the photos, honey. But I back them up.
Yeah. So what kind of photos are they? Are they
just
like
all family stuff? Yeah,
just family stuff.
Yeah. And she's a foodie, taking pictures of her food, So.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
I'm like,
well, I think we've managed to fill an hour and a half of
holy cow, we have.
Just stuff.
Yeah, we have. Right? It's been a good chat.
Yeah.
So anyway, regular schedule next week. But after, I will not be, again, don't remember, Rob, I will not be available.
The 5th and the 12th.
Yeah, 5th and 12th. So we'll definitely have a show tomorrow. But headed back to Cali. I'll be in LA during vacation for a few days. I'll be in Riverside for a soccer tournament. And so I don't know what my schedule is going to be, but I think when I'm there, you're probably not even going to be in town. And then we're off to Disneyland. And then we're going up to San Francisco, and my wife wants to see Alcatraz. And I talked her out of going to Yosemite for a day, so I didn't want to do a Yosemite one-day trip. That's brutal.
Yeah.
You go to Yosemite, you go for 3 days. You don't go for, 12 hours.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think we're all set to go. A lot of driving, I know that. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it. All right. Well, I hope you have fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're back in the saddle next Saturday too.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't believe that we have a guest lined up yet, but we'll see if we can find somebody interesting next week.
Okay.
It won't just be our mug shots.
Yeah, great.
So
And see if you can get Snooky on.
there you go.
That
There's
would,
an idea for
that,
you.
That would be, we draw some numbers.
I would say we probably would. Yeah. Talk about a contract. I mean, it's actually a really interesting idea, actually.
Yeah.
But,
Because I think sometimes those folks bring a different perspective, completely different perspective.
I could probably get the honey badger on the show.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, it's a podcast. It's on our platform. Yeah, he's a YouTube celebrity, and his name is Randall, and he does a podcast called the Honey Badger's Badass Animal Podcast.
What's he do? Talk about weird pet tricks and stuff?
Well, yeah. So about a year and a half ago, he had a hugely popular video that he made about honey badgers on YouTube. And he's like a guy, I mean, he's like an actor. He gets into character and he talks in a certain voice. It's like, and he's really funny. Right. And he does a fantastic show. And it is kind of plowing kind of new ground in the podcasting space because it's like an actor performing, right?
Right.
And yeah, I might invite Randall to come join us next week. Well, maybe.
We need a lighter, fun show.
I think it would be interesting to have Randall on. Yes.
All right. Cool.
So
all right,
I'll try and pull that off. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it or not, but we'll see.
All right, cool. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in. It's Todd or Rob at newmediashow.com. That is Todd at newmediashow.com, Rob at newmediashow.com. I had someone ask me, why is your email Todd or Rob at newmedia.com? I'm like, it's not
no,
it.
It's Rob at newmediashow.com. And you can also find me on Twitter at Rob Greenlee, and that's 2 E's.
And
there it is.
Yeah, and of course, I didn't put mine up today at all. You can find me at Geek News, and we appreciate you being here. I hope we didn't bore you, but
yeah, because I'm also starting to post some of the Pottertainment articles on my blog at robgreenlee.com as
cool.
well.
Yeah, and I've been doing that over at podcasternews.com. That's where I've been putting mine. So you want to submit those over there, Rob, too? I'd be more than happy to take them if you want to put them over there sometime. So
at the podcaster news site.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
No, I'll send them over to you.
All right, or I'll just make you an account and you can post them. All right, everyone.
Okay, there you go.
We'll see you next time. Thanks so much, and hear from sunny Honolulu, aloha, and I guess sunny Seattle today too. Yeah, Rob.
Yeah, that's right. And let us know what you want to hear on the show too. I mean, we're open to a lot of ideas. We just hop on the show and just kind of wing it most of the time. Yeah. But if there are topics that you would want to hear us cover, I mean, we're all ears, and we'll reach out and find those folks if it's something that we can do. It'd be great.
Absolutely. All right, folks. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
If I can find the link with the YouTube stuff. Oh, that's interesting.
What's that?